All right, and we are back. Uh, Thank you for Tyler Shell for joining us in the first hour there. That was a good time. We are going to bring on a real race car driver now. No disrespect to Tyler Shell.
Oh, that's messed up.
I'm no disrespect, but someone who drives a real race car, 358 driver, Ashley Cappetta.
Hi
Ashley, thank you for
guys, thank you
joining
for
us.
having me tonight.
How you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm actually kind of tired still from Saturday. It was a very long day, but it was definitely well worth being there with all the fans and everything for our event. But I'm still exhausted.
So tell us a little bit about that. How many years have you done this event? Kind of what goes on and uh, success of it.
So I started it. So when I first got into racing, my parents told me that I had to figure it out on my own. Even with the Cappetta last name, everybody was very quick to assume that there was money here, and that my uncle Rob built my motors, and neither were true. So I kind of had to do my own deal. I did the antique business. This all ties hand in hand, so I'm not trying to go off the grid. So I started the antique and collectibles business first. Um, and I went to auctions, I bought stuff, took it to the flea market, which was up at Williams Grove. And then all that money I pretty much put into my race car. And then everybody's like, well, why don't you do an event? And I'm like, well, Nicky Young, when he used to race the 10N car, they used to do one at the same place that I have mine. And they're like, why don't you do a fundraiser? And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I was like, I don't know how we're going to make this work, but I was like, let's just give it a shot. So the first year I had it at Midway Fire Company, which was a really small fire company, maybe could seat 150, maybe 200 people on a good day. So we had our first one there, and because my dad used to do like their Christmas parties and stuff. So, and I mean, it was very small. We did like the raffle baskets were not that great. We had like a really small auction. Didn't really make a whole lot of money, but it brought fans together and it helped, you know. So I was like, you know, and everybody's like, "Oh, why don't you do it again next year?" So we did it like year after year, and then we just kept getting bigger and bigger because we always tried to make something different for the next event that would make people want to come back. So the eighth year, which would have been 2018, 2017, I think it was 2017, I started doing Everybody Got a Free Shirt. So then I was like, okay, well, let's do something else. And then we added, like this year, we ended up doing 4 giveaways total. It was a drawstring bag, a decal, a can koozie, and the shirt, which this was our first year doing colored shirts. So with the economy being so crappy, I was like, we have to make sure these fans feel like they belong here and they're not just coming just because we want their money or that they feel like we're using them per se. So the first thing that's important to me, and I wish tracks would kind of see this too, the more people feel loved and appreciated, the more they're going to want to support you. I don't care if they
What a
actually,
concept.
yeah, if they don't like you. I mean, there's people that I see that come to our events that I don't see at the track every weekend. But people know that when they come to our event, they're not going to leave hungry. And if they do, it's their own fault. We always provide beverages. We always have giveaways. We try to always make it a fun experience. I wish I actually got to experience it more, but I'm so busy the whole night that it's literally, you walk in the door to set up, and then the next minute you're looking at your clock and it's time to go home. So each year it grows. So this one was our 11th one. And I definitely thought it was great. Looked like everybody had a great time. I didn't hear any complaints this year. Last year, I heard a couple of people complaining about it. Nothing like that I would do per se, but something that they thought we could do better. And I take that very serious. So I always try to make it better. So this year we did 4 different like main foods. We weren't supposed to have shrimp, but I added that as an extra item just because I was like, these people are coming to help us out. And like, I would have done even more than what we already did, but you got to put a line somewhere. You're not going to make any money.
Right.
So the racing bash that we did with the new Outlaw game, I think that went really well. We had 20 racers sign up, which I don't think is bad for the first time. And we ended up, I actually gave, so I made $18 profit off of it. So I wasn't really worried about the profit part of it. I wanted people to come, have fun, and try something different. So now next year, since our payout was 500 for the regular race, and then it was 190 for the non-qualifiers that placed, next year I want to do $1,000, if not more than that, payout, and then try to do like a 200 to 300 non-qualifiers purse. So there's always room for improvement, and I always will try to do something to make it better. As long
That's
as we're
awesome.
racing still, obviously next year, God willing. But um, I would not even mind helping other drivers put one together. I know Wyatt was supposed to have one, and it kind of didn't work out. January is really tough. We used to have ours in January, but I learned after the holidays, like, people are broke and people just don't really want to do anything. So that's why we moved ours to the second week in February, because Extravaganza is the week before, then Motorama is the week after, and then after that's Lincoln Opener. So just kind of, you got to find the right time to do it or it won't work out.
So, and this is all to support your race team. So let's go back there a little bit and kind of do what we've done with all of our guests. And I know a little bit about you. Got to meet you a little bit last year and talked to you in the pits a few times. Jimmy and Chris obviously know the car. They know your name. But there's going to be some fans that know as much as myself, Jimmy, or Chris, or less. So
Mm-hmm.
let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Talk about your family's history in racing. I know you talked about your uncle, I believe, Rob,
Yep.
who's a pretty big name in the sport and the industry, and a little bit about your family history and kind of where you got to get here today, or where you've been to get here
So
today.
my dad used to help. Well, he used to help my uncle Rob first. So my uncle ran in the 70s, and then after my uncle Rob quit racing, my dad kind of got into some trouble. Not like anything like bad, but just doing regular men, teenage, older stuff. Um, got involved with the wrong women. Let's just put it that way. So he wasn't in trouble. My uncle suggested, "Why don't you go help Steve Smith because he's looking for somebody." So my dad actually wasn't Steve's biggest fan at one point because he was a huge Kenny Weld fan. So he's like, "I don't like that." Just like how people were with Fred Raymer when he was in the 88H car. I was one of those people. I couldn't stand the man because anybody that beat Greg Hodnett, I didn't like. So that my dad was the same way. So then he started working for Steve Smith, and obviously absolutely loved and adored Steve, and he still does to this day. There's still days that he struggles with him being gone. Um, then my uncle actually went to NASCAR. He was the gas man for Robert Yates Racing, Dale Jarrett. So that was a really cool deal. I wish I would have been able to actually go and watch that happen, but I was like 5 or 6 years old when that was going on. And then he didn't really get to see my little cousins. Well, little at the time. They're older now, around my age. He didn't get to see the kids much, so he came back home. And then he started to build sprint car motors. He built for Brian Lepo, Eric Stanball, Greg Hodnett. He built for John Trone for a little while. Um, Jason Solwald and Jack Hodenshield in the R19 car. And now KKR, which he's been doing that for, I think, 5 years maybe. I know they have 4 championships together, but so
It's a hell of a resume.
so that's yeah. Which honestly, the first year that Brad got the championship, I was absolutely sick to my stomach because I wanted that championship more than anything for my uncle and Brad, but physically being there and watching that all unfold, because that was the year that Danny Dietrich broke right in front of Brad on the backstretch at Charlotte. And of course I like panicked. I was like, here, like, I thought it was over at that point. So that's like my uncle and my dad. So then when my uncle built the motors for Greg Hodnett, that's when I started to get attached to racing. Like, I absolutely idolized Greg. Just, he was always so driven. He was always determined. like when he was at the track, you could say hi to him, but he was so like tunnel visioned on what he had to do, and I admired that because he recognized that you were there, but he also was so focused on what he needed to do. And that's what really drove me to really like racing. Obviously, I watched Stevie race because my dad helped Steve, but I don't really remember that a whole lot because I was really young. Um, so then my uncle started to build Lepos motors when Hodnett went to the 77 car, and my heart was broken because he wasn't in the Apple anymore. um, that was my favorite car. So then I started scraping mud and stuff, helping Lepo with just like the simple mud scraping task. And then I saw AJ Michael was asking for help. So I went and helped AJ Michael for a couple of years, and his crew chief was Jim Schreiner, who is now Dylan Cisney's crew chief. And he taught me how to change the gears and change shocks and a little bit more than just your average mud scraper kind of thing. And then AJ hung it up shortly after he got his concussion at Lincoln. And he has a business and stuff, so he kind of wanted to focus on the family business more. So then I helped Kyle Pruitt briefly, and that's how I met Dylan Norris's dad, Sean. And I knew Sean knew everything you could think of about a race car. He's got a So I asked him one day, I said, Sean, I said, I really want to learn about sprint cars. And he said, okay. So I went to the shop. He was working for Brian Bruckner at the time in the 358s. And he said, I go to the shop on Sundays, I'll take you up there. And he showed me how he does maintenance. I mean, that guy has probably the best maintenance program that I've seen in my face, actually. And we do the same maintenance program now here because I've watched and have done it with Sean so often that it just became secondhand nature for me. And then Chris Esch took over driving duties when Brian Bruckner broke his neck at Trailways. And then I said to Sean one day, I said, hey, it's like, I'd like to build a 358. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, I need to come up with something for a senior project. And I was like, I think it'd be kind of cool to build a sprint car. I honestly didn't think I'd be able to race the thing. I thought I was going to get it to a frame, a body, pretty much a whole roller. I didn't think we'd get a motor or anything. And my parents were like, you're not racing that damn thing. And I'm like, okay. So a motor ended up coming, and then I started to race at Trailways. And I'll never forget it. I never had any racing experience except for, I always joke and I say mowing the grass at grandma's. That was about as far as it went. And Speedway 94 is about as far as it went. And we went to Trailways for a practice session. And now I've always had the enclosure panel pretty much my whole career. And I was in the car and I was getting ready to go out there. And I had the hooker harness seatbelts pretty much my whole career as well, which had the ratcheting device. And he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, nope, I'm getting out of here. He's like, oh no. He's like, you're staying in there. It was more that I felt so claustrophobic because, like, when you get in your personal vehicle, you can kind of like move around and stuff. Not in that thing. And I went out there and I putzed around. Like, I was like, oh, this kind of feels fast. Not really. And then there were some people that, like, oh, I expected her to be a lot better and like had all these expectations for me. And I'm like, I'd never raced anything,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be the type to go out there. You know how some of these people are. They'll go out there and stand on the gas, and then they're the next one hanging it in the fence. I was like, I worked hard for this. I ain't going to do that.
Right.
So I got I got more mad than I did upset. And I went up to BAPS. Well, it was Susquehanna at the time. And they put me out there with the 410s. And I'm like, they have lost their mind. I was literally 3 wide. It was Donnie Kreitz Jr. and Kevin Nouse, and I was in the middle. And I was like, you gotta just hold your line and just stay in the gas. And I followed those guys pretty much the whole night. And then the next time I went up, Chad Trout was there. I think he had a 360 in maybe that night. And I followed him around. And then I went back to Trailways. And then Jim Travis was my engine builder at the time. And he's like, the only way you're going to truly get better is if you go to Trailways and just tag the rear. And now, as small as Trailways is, lap traffic happens really fast. Yeah. So I always had in my mind, The moment I got lapped is when I pulled off the field. And the reason I did that is, for one, my own safety and the safety of everybody else, because I was nowhere near where those guys were. And I feel like the respect, like when Jeff Rurball told me he thought I was ready to start on the front row, and Brad McClellan, that's when I took the chance, because I wanted that respect. I didn't want to be one of those ones in the way. I didn't want to get drove over. Um, so that was kind of where I was at with that. And then I started not to like trailways as much because a lot of cars like to drive in the infield and then they would shoot back out, and that always scared the dickens out of me. So I was like, let's go to and I fell in love with Lincoln. I like Williams Grove, but Fridays for me are really tough with the antique business because there's a lot of Friday night auctions. And I know I can't make Saturday night auctions because I have to kind of pick and choose. If I want to race Saturday, I got to go to auction Friday. If I want to race Friday, then I'd have to give up. So it's kind of, you got to, all these auctions, like you have a website, it's called Auction Zip, and they have a full calendar, kind of like a schedule. And you go on and you can look at what auctions are within your, like, say I put 30 miles. I can look at all the auctions in my area for the whole week. And I can just click on there and they post their pictures and everything. So if it looks like a good auction, I'm going to go. If it looks like
Right.
junk, I'm not going to waste my time. But junk doesn't make me money. So I kind of got to pick my poison when it
Right.
comes to that.
So with kind of talked about, kind of fell in love with Lincoln a little bit. So that would be an easy choice. You're saying, hey, which night am I going to sacrifice? If you had if it was all equal, and I would have done the same thing, right? Pick the track you want to race at because you still want to race, and kind of do that. And so I see you over like, how long have you been kind of, I don't want to say full time, but since Trailway, you kind of were like, okay, I'm done with Trailway. Have you kind of, as soon as you transitioned to Lincoln, that's been the plan all along ever since that switch happened, that you're just, auction Friday night, Lincoln Saturday night, and that's kind of been the plan since. How long has that been?
Um, I would say we went full time like in 2017 when Smokers Outlet came on board. The only other factor that we have, like Lincoln's 15 minutes from us. So it's kind
That's
of
pretty good.
easy, but like my dad's a professional DJ too, which a lot of people do know that, and then a lot of people don't know that. He's played over 1,000 and some weddings since '82. So, I mean, he works at Harley Davidson full time, but he also does DJing as a side job as well. So, there's Friday nights where he plays at my one sponsor's place, the Republican Club. So, like the Friday nights that he has booked, it's like I'm not going to go without him to the track because he also works on my car. So Lincoln just kind of worked easier for us because my dad used to do a lot of Saturday weddings and stuff like that. So then he had to switch his schedule to not do Saturday weddings and play somewhere else Friday night to make up for the money lost for the weddings. So we kind of just made it work because a lot of my one crew guy, he was working Fridays and it was late Fridays that he would get to the track. So it just became to be, it just worked out for everybody to do Lincoln. But I obviously want to support Williams Grove too because, excuse me, they're the only ones that have upped our purse. Lincoln hasn't touched our purse in I don't know how long.
Yeah, and I know that's becoming more and more of a topic. And Williams Grove, they have some work to do for sure. But I think that you're the second driver now that said I want to support Williams Grove, or I'm going to solely do Williams Grove because of the purse, right? Chase Dietz talked
Right.
about that a
Yep.
couple weeks ago, that he wants to focus on Williams Grove because of the purse money, making the shows is going to help the way he has to run his program this year and kind of building that up. So that's pretty interesting to hear multiple people talk about that. Now, again, is that money increase worth switching schedules? And that's for your family, your program, to make
Right.
that all work and make that make sense. And then then there's just the other challenges of Williams Grove and getting the laps and the seat time, and
Right.
and kind of you want to be competitive when you go, not just for the couple bucks, but you want to also be competitive. So I can understand that completely. So let's talk about 2022 a little bit, because you're not going to be the first 358 driver to come on here and kind of not be thrilled with their 2022 season. And that's okay because this
No.
happens in racing. But I feel like a lot of our 2022 358 guests struggled this past year with consistency. And not that you didn't have speed. We talked to Justin Foster, talked to
Yeah,
Jaden
he had a
Wolf,
really bad year too. I felt
you
bad
know,
for him.
and there's nights that I, go out there and see all the Jaden Wolf and Justin Foster and a couple of those guys. They have speed, but just couldn't put their nights together for of various reasons, right? A multitude of
Right.
reasons. So, talk a little bit about your season, kind of where it went. And I followed it enough to kind of know a little bit between. I mean, you tell your story and your view of it, and I like kind of see if it matches up in my head about what I thought.
Well, we started the year off rough even before racing season started. So my dad broke his ankle the night of my fundraiser last year.
Ooh.
So
Too many
that was
Pepsis.
what's that?
Too many Pepsis at the party. Come
It
on,
was even
Dad.
before the party started. That's the
Oh
best part.
man.
Oh, kegs and eggs. Okay, got it.
So I'm getting literally set up for the event, and my mom calls. It's like, your dad broke his leg. I was like, what do you mean he broke his? Like, she's a little dramatic sometimes, so I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. So she's like, no, now he's blacking out on me. So of course I'm panicking now at this point because I'm like, he broke his leg and he's blacking out. Now my dad doesn't have a high pain tolerance for the most part. So I was like, okay, so maybe he's being dramatic. So then like she's FaceTiming me and I was gonna hop in my truck and fly home, but I was like, I have the race car trailer with me, so that's not gonna happen. So she's FaceTiming me. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call 911 because I was like, even though I wasn't there, it was like I had the most common sense of what was going on. So I called 911, wasn't even there. My friend was the EMT and ended up showing up at the house, and she's FaceTiming me, and she's like, yeah, his ankle, he broke his ankle. I said, Mom, how'd you go from his leg to his ankle? So she's like, I'm telling you, that thing was like this. His
Ooh.
shoe was like fully like puffed out. The laces were sticking everywhere. It was a
Ugh.
hot mess. He didn't want to go to the hospital and sit there. Well, on top of that, my aunt was in the hospital with COVID and she was not doing well at all. So we thought she might have pulled through, but she passed away 3 days later after that. So then on top of that, we had complications with my dad after his surgery. He ended up almost passing out on me at home because they had his bandage so tight that he was getting no circulation in his foot whatsoever. So I called the paramedics. They were at my house. We had to go bury his sister the next day. So it was like a hot mess. So we got through that. Then Lincoln's practice came up. We built a complete car. It had a seat and a motor for Lincoln's practice. We started at 10 a.m. and pulled in Lincoln's gates at 7. And I ran practice laps. I was like, okay, cool. Like everything's, maybe it was just a fluke. I was like, maybe it was just the month of February. Then my uncle got really sick, not Rob, my uncle Jim, and he about died on us. It was really, really bad. So I took that very, very hard because he's like a father figure, and he was at most of my races pretty much for my 10 years of racing. So it was hard. And then them pill draw bags, I'm telling you what, I told Brian Householder I was ready to blow up the shed and get rid of them pills because I don't care who drew for me. It was terrible. We had 4 races where we started up front, and people were like, well, complaining about the pill draw is not going to do anything. I said, you're right. Complaining is not going to do anything. However, it's tough to start in the back, especially if you're in heat 1. The track's not wide. You can't pass. I'm not the type that really likes to go way up high. So it's like, well, I did try to go high a couple times at the end of the year in the heat races, and I just didn't go anywhere. So at this point, I'm like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to do this anymore. I was like, because I hated going to the track every week, just because our pill draws were awful, and I wasn't having fun. It was the same tune every single week. And then the tire deal, like that ticked me off because we had to get them stupid poker chips and we were fighting for tires every week. And it was becoming very stressful and I just didn't know if I wanted to do it anymore. So then I got COVID in August. Not that having COVID was a good thing, but for my mental state, it probably was a good thing because it gave me a month and a half off of racing. Because I went to Disney on my 10th day because I already had the trip paid for. So on my 10th day, I went and I was gone for a week. I came home, had complications probably because it was so freaking hot in Florida. I probably didn't drink enough fluids. So, like, I came home. I tried to move some furniture around, and like that quick, you would have thought that I had it all over again. I had no energy whatsoever. Didn't even want to do my antique business. Didn't want to race. I didn't want to do anything. Um, so I kind of had to like build my strength back up. And luckily, the first night out after I had COVID, I finished second to a friend of mine, which I always pick on him to this day. I'm like, man, you just couldn't let me have that one moment. But he, he worked for it. He deserved it. And he told me if the top would have never came in, that I would have been long gone and it would have been a different story. But that kind of turned the tune a little bit. Um, and the end of like the last race of the year wasn't that great. But I also realized too, what made me really feel okay about the 2022 season is when I talked to Brad at the first National Open, not the second one that we had at the end of the year. He had actually a couple races last year that he was questioning himself with things too. And when there's guys that are on a professional level like that and they think the same, it kind of makes you feel like, okay, so there is people out there that do this for a living and they struggle. I watched Donnie Schatz have one of the worst seasons he's had in a long time, but he was going through a lot with his dad, being sick, and then he passed away. And then like the Ford Motor thing, I think they were working with stuff on that. So it's like you got to consider that not every year is going to be great. Before Greg Hodnett passed away, he had 24 races won that year or something. The following year, he couldn't win in a 410, but won in the 360. So watching guys that are absolutely great race car drivers not have a good year, I had to keep that in my mind that you're not always going to do well. The only thing that sucks is same way with time trials. I mean, if you go out first, sometimes you're going to have a good lap. If you go out last, sometimes you're going to have a better lap. So there's so many scenarios for everybody that sometimes luck is like 70% of your night. So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
kind of how I view it.
I agree completely, and we've talked a lot about the pill draw stuff and time trial stuff, and listen, it can definitely be um it can be a problem, and it is that division, not only like you said, the first heat, but then just the competition in general in that division.
Yep.
And and you're 100% right with racing, right? It's also you don't do it for a living. When you talk about Brad and Donnie and they're doing it for a living and they have struggles, why the hell would you want to go every week when this is a hobby, it's for fun, and you're not having fun? Well, that's our competitive nature, right? That's our competitive nature, to
Absolutely.
want to go out there and win and succeed in everything we do. And it doesn't just be that's not just racing, that's anything. But
Yes.
you have to also have those expectations and say, listen, I know I can't get in this car and I'm going to win every night. I know I'm going to get in this car and we're going to wreck a car. We're going to have a shitty pill draw. We're going to do this, but it's like I'm doing this because I love it, right?
Right.
It's not paying your bills. It's not making you a living. In fact, it
No,
probably stands in
definitely
the
not
way of
paying
all
the
those
bills.
things, right? It stands in the way of all those things. So at some point, it's like, yeah, this isn't fun, but man, it's cool to be in a freaking race car. Not a lot of people get to do this, right? So,
Absolutely.
like from this guy's standpoint, I'm with you. The competitive drive is there no matter what I do and anything I do. I want to win an argument. I want to win anything. But that's hard while you're in it to take that perspective of saying this is still awesome. There's not many people on the planet get to do this. I know that's got to be hard to do in the moment, right? Because you put
Oh
so
my
much
God. Yeah,
into it.
there's
You put so much work and time and energy and effort into it that you want to get out of it everything that you want to work that you worked for. You want to get everything back out of that. And it doesn't always go that way. And I can understand that mental drain a little bit. And like you said, getting COVID isn't like great, but that time away mentally, even though COVID's kind of a mind, like probably was a nice little break from it all. And then to come
yeah.
back and finish second is like, okay, cool. I can still do this. Or, hey, like that's what we do this for. That was a good whatever. So, and I think it's always good to evaluate week to week. We've talked to some drivers that go, okay, after the race is over Saturday, we pack it up, go home, have to do all the crap, clean it, maintenance it, put it back together, and it's done. Then there's other guys that go, man, I go back to the track and I was thinking about last week. It's very wild to hear the stories of how people handle good, bad, adversity, triumph, and they all handle it in their own way. And
Absolutely.
I think that is really a balance to this racing deal. It's just as much mental as it is physical. And everybody gets behind the wheel of these cars has the ability to win a race for the most part that I've talked to. I mean, there's maybe, there's select few that get into behind the wheel of a race car and never going to win a race.
Right.
Whatever. But if you get behind that wheel, you're competitive, you have the ability to win races, you've won races. It's almost like you have to wash away the week before, no matter how good or bad it went, because you're never as good as your best race and you're never as bad as your worst race. That's
Absolutely.
just the way you got to look at it. And I think that mental side of it can go a long way for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree because at first, like when I watched Lincoln on Flow the weekend that I missed because of me being sick, I was kind of like, man, this sucks. But then there was like, I think it was a really, really long night, or either it was a
Well, it
bad
was in
night.
Lincoln, so it was a long night.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
no, that was the night that they kept wrecking in the heat races. And
Yeah.
actually, somebody that worked at Lincoln messaged me and was like, "Aren't you glad you're not here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Well, then the weekend that they ran BAPS, I had to miss that because when I came home from Disney, I had vertigo.
Oh,
Um, I guess with like my sinuses and everything, so like I'd be dizzy all the time. So I was like, I am not getting behind a race car being
No.
dizzy.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm staying home from BAPS. That's true. Every
Yeah.
night at
Every.
Lincoln.
Yes.
Um, I was like very thankful I didn't go because they had like 8 or 10 cars crash that night, and I'm just like, and that was the night that the 358s kind of got in a chat group and they started like pointing fingers at one another, and I'm just like, I'm glad that I stayed in bed and just watched results on Twitter because I was like that. Sometimes I feel like everything has a purpose, and I mean it was kind of like the same night that I was supposed to race BAP, but flow is a problem. Sorry, I'm bitter.
Rocky's taking
Billy,
my question there.
Rocky, we wanted,
Rocky
yeah.
Rocky tuned in last week and saw Ashley's opinion. He's just stirring the pot up already.
There, I could sit here and talk for hours with like what's part of the problem that these tracks have, but unfortunately, I'm not to Lincoln. I'm just a driver that shows up. It doesn't matter what I have to say. I'll tell you guys this, and I'll tell anybody this. As a business owner, I would rather sell 2,000 tickets at $14 because guess what? If you sell it at $14, guarantee you they're going to spend $6 to $20 at the track to either buy a hot dog, or they're going to buy food, they're going to buy drinks,
Mhm.
they're going to buy a souvenir. So you're going to get your money anyway. But if you're going to have like 800 people walk in at $20 and probably bring their own food, you're not going to make anything anyway.
Right.
So if I owned a track and I know I'm just a driver, but as a business person, I would view it as do some more for the fans, get these fans involved, kind of like with how I do my events. Get the fans involved, do for them, they're going to do for you, and they're going to show up. It's just that simple. Because I'll be honest, I'm just as guilty as everybody else. When I'm not racing Saturdays, I'm either at an auction or I'm out in the shop working on stuff for my antique business, and then I have flow on. It saves me more money being at home.
Yep.
But it doesn't, like, when the Outlaws are in town, I'm obviously at the track because it's not the same. I'd rather be there, experience it. Sitting at home, you don't get that experience. But if these fans don't feel like they have any benefit being there other than it being right in their face, they're not going to show up. It's just no different than us watching baseball, football, hockey.
Yep.
I would rather be at a Caps game any day. I would love to be a season ticket holder. It's not the same as sitting at home watching it on TV than watching these guys pound against the ice and everything, the fights, the whole 9 yards, banging the boards, everything.
So you're saying
You
the
don't
event
get
is as
that.
important as the race?
What's that?
You're saying the event is more important or just as important as the racing?
I feel like everything that happens at the track is important.
Good
Right,
answer.
and that's
Yep.
exactly what Justin Snyder said about a month ago when Port Royal's how they build their races up is they want the person that comes to Port Royal Speedway to have an experience that maybe
Absolutely.
Big Tough Score obviously has the advantage of the fair being there and everything like that, but just every event, the Weikert, whatever it is, and I think more tracks need to take that approach.
It's really not that hard to stick a tent out in the like in the parking lot, like they do the Brandon Little Memorial. Stick a tent out there, ask some drivers to come, have some hot dogs out there on a grill. You got to get these people involved because guess what? If you don't get the kids involved, you're done.
You have no next
It's just that
generation to come
simple.
to the track then.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because if you don't get they're your next generation. If you don't get the kids involved, they're not going to come. They're not going to get their own kids to come when they're older. So it's just there got to be something that makes the fans feel appreciated. Like when I remember being little, they used to have a lot of driver interviews. They used to do autographs a lot more that I've noticed. Um, it just felt like a more family oriented type deal. But now you go to I pull out on the track for warm ups and it's like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
And
So you're saying just calling it like Pepsi night isn't enough, or calling it,
I could care less.
uh,
No offense to any not including memorial races. So let's just put that out
absolutely.
here.
Mm-hmm.
I could care less if it's Pepsi, Coke, Buffalo Wild Wings night.
That doesn't bring the fans, huh?
That doesn't
Okay.
bring the fans unless somebody's
Oh, that
handing out
paid the bill.
coupons
That
for
just paid
free
someone's.
wings or
Right.
something like that. That's not going to get the fans there.
That's right.
And I've even told, I'm not going to say names, I've told different track owners different ideas to try to get, but it's like it didn't matter.
Right.
And I'm not going to, push and shove to make anything happen. I mean, we threw t-shirts in the grandstands a couple times. And of course, you still get people to message you and be like, well, you didn't throw one to me. Or
Oh
you
my
had
God.
people getting ignorant about
Don't
it.
mind that.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I didn't
Yeah.
have to do it.
Don't
But
mind
I
that.
love my fans. I love the people that don't like me either because still you're technically putting your energy on me regardless. And you got to have people that don't like you, just like in anything. Um, just fans physically being there and supporting any driver is great to me. Um, I look at the racing community as one big family. Just like your own family, there's going to be a couple thorns in the family. And it's just
Sure.
the way it works. But we're all there for the same thing. We all love racing. Um, I feel like the economy is definitely killing fans coming.
I agree.
And I feel like the cost of just even driving to the track
Yes.
is hard enough. So you got to think the moment you pull out of your driveway, how much you're spending. You got to think of the mission to get in. Then if you got kids, they're going to be bugging you all night. I want a hot dog. I want a popsicle. I want this. I want that. So you got to kind of think of what's important before you even get to the track. Um, I hope to see more faces this year, but I don't think taking Flo away is going to fix all the issues. I really don't. It's going to suck going home and not being able to watch the race again, so I can critique myself of what I should have done or what I shouldn't have done. So there's a lot of key factors. I mean, look at Outlaw's attendance when they're here. I mean, there's people that stay home and watch it, but it's still a really good attendance at the track.
Yep. Yeah. Well, my thing is too is they have that big video board that they just paid for in the middle of the infield. Are they just not going to use it now? Like I don't know.
Maybe you just put Buffalo Wild Wings or Pepsi or Coke on there.
Well, standing in the pits, you have this big TV screen and can't even see, the cars going by. They were also supposed to have a mascot that they talked about at Lincoln, and
Interesting.
that never happened.
I thought it was Chalk Guy.
Did you say a mascot at Lincoln?
That this is Chalk Guy. The
They
guy
were
now?
they talked about it when Jerry and all them took over. That was a discussion that they wanted to do something for the kids.
A grandfather clock.
I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy to probably come up with just any mascot because, I mean, look, I love Gritty from the Flyers, and I'm not a Flyer fan. But when they said that was their mascot, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like that thing looks like a mop that just got dumped into like orange paint. But he's adorable. Like I love him now. But at first I'm like, this is true Philly fashion.
Yep.
No offense to any Philly fans, but
Yeah.
I
know
just
one. He's an idiot.
I just don't know what they'd come up with. But I wish, like I said, there'd be a little bit more interaction with the fans because not everybody can stay after the races because they have kids or whatever, and nobody wants
Right.
to be there when we're there till 12,
1
1
o'clock in the
o'clock.
morning.
Most kids are like this by the end of the night. So I wish they could do something before the races a little bit to get the fans like connected to the drivers. Same way I was connected to Greg. I feel like if these people actually had a connection to certain drivers, I feel like they'd want to be there more.
Exactly, and that's exactly why we talked about why we're doing what we're doing is because growing up like Greg was the same guy that I remember having him sign a picture of a birthday cake I had with his Apple car on it, and that kind of started it for me, and that's why now like I take my daughter to the races and it's the 69K because that's our car. Same
Right.
idea.
Yeah, it's important for these kids to have a driver that they're attached to.
Yep.
Jimmy, who's your favorite driver? Jimbo.
I don't want to talk about it.
Come on.
I don't really have a favorite.
I was gonna say, I really don't.
My 100% favorite is Lance Deweese. He's the one
There's
that got
nothing
me
wrong with that.
watching him.
I think
So,
Jeremy's staring him down the road of Danny.
Yeah, well, I'm apparently the
Jimbo.
leader. Yeah, I got called Jimbo by Danny Dietrich. So
On Twitter.
apparently I'm on Twitter. So you
I
know how
still
that
think
went.
You need to log in every week as Jimbo, not Jimmy.
I should.
Lance earned my respect after the National Open when Greg passed away, and he
Yes.
dedicated the race to Greg. That was when he gained my respect. I had no issues with him before that either, but I'm just saying after he did that,
Just
that
different.
Yeah, that was awesome.
meant a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
the easier out and pointed Jordan Givler over your shoulder there, Jimbo.
Good
I
boy.
see that.
I love Jordan. Just talking a little bit about the 358 division as a whole. I know there's some gripes over the payout and stuff, and something that kind of came up was I saw the speedster schedule, and they're paying $2,500 to win minimum, for speedsters. And that's not even what
that schedule.
Yeah. So
wow.
So
I mean, that's great for the speedsters, though.
It's great. Yeah, it is. But how does that make you feel as a 358 driver? Obviously, I'm not trying to. Not trying to poke the bear here, but
no, you're really not. I mean, I told everybody before I even came into the deal, I knew I was going to lose money doing this anyway. So if I wanted to do this to make money, I was an idiot thinking that was going to happen. So that wasn't going to happen. So pay is important though, especially now because I mean tires are expensive. I mean everything's expensive. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
I feel like I don't know if you guys seen that's apparently a talk that we might get aluminum heads because there's a shortage of steel. That was a discussion, and then it was a big hurrah when we had the ugly 3x5 wings. But I actually liked those wings. I didn't like the way they looked. I thought they looked horrible. But I was always better on them for whatever reason. I don't know why. We had a very good setup in 2019, which is the year that I had my best career ever. And then we went to the 5x5 after that and kind of just struggled. So the guy that wanted that role so bad, he's not even in the wing business anymore. So then we had to spend all this money. I mean, not a whole lot of money, but we had to spend money to go to the 5x5. We had to get rid of our 3x5. And then we had to add more weight this year, which I'm cool with that. That's kind of like a safety deal. But watching these, like even iRacing purse is like insanity.
$10 show on. He just won $10,000 for 10 weeks of racing.
And I saw that. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's no reason 358 shouldn't be getting $250 to $300 to start.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we don't put as much into our motors, and I know we don't have to
Yeah, but that don't you make
That
excuses for it.
yeah.
That doesn't matter. This
No, I
is a
know. I'm
premier
just
division
saying.
in our state. It's a premier division. It's probably the
Right.
most popular, second popular, second most popular division in our area, and it'll rival. I don't care if it says 358 or 360 on it. It's a 360 division, right? It's the second. It's the next step down from a 410. Don't make excuses for them. It doesn't matter
Oh,
if you
I'm
spend
trust me.
less
I
or
ain't
not,
making
because none of you
excuses.
guys are spending.
But
None of y'all are
everybody always
spending less
says,
money. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
everybody's always like, well, they'll just replace you with 305s. Okay, well,
It's not
they
the
get
that
good
same.
money to
It's not the same.
start.
well,
Yeah.
their purse is even worse than ours. I don't even know how those guys do it.
Well,
Um,
they don't have a big win, but they have a pretty good throughout the field. They spread it out.
yeah,
The overall purse isn't great, but they spread it out throughout the field to the starters, which everybody knows you win a race in a 305, it's like, $350 or something. Well,
right.
somebody knows more than I do, but it's not top heavy, it's spread out more throughout. And I think that just 358s in general, when you guys show up to the racetrack, that pulls people in. And I agree with you completely. I think it all needs to go. I don't know. There's only so much money to go around, and especially if fans aren't going to the track,
Right,
that makes it harder and harder for a track to go, sure, here you go, without a
right.
commitment from fans. But if you're not doing what it takes to get the fans in the stands, you can't pay the cars. So
Yeah, and
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's a big problem Lincoln has with they don't they I feel like I can't say they want to pay us more, but I feel like if there's not fans there, how can
How
I mean
How
as a
can
can they?
business owner of a track, how can you justify paying the drivers more when nobody's coming in?
they?
Yep,
Absolutely.
super
So,
difficult for sure.
Yeah.
but
Chris, you
for
got
me,
anything?
I'm not going
Yeah.
to stress over purse because I knew getting into this from day
Does
one.
another $100 in winnings make you rich in your race team? So that's the other
No.
part of this. Now,
Shocking.
I'm not making an excuse for the track either, and this is just I've been thinking about this a lot and talking with a lot of people. I'm close to that are in the game 358, 410, whatever it is. Everyone complains about the cost and the pay,
Mhm.
but ain't nobody out there making a living in Central PA that runs weekly. Just around very few. Okay, there's one or two, maybe,
Mhm.
but none of y'all are making a living doing it. You're just trying not to lose your ass doing it, right?
Right.
To go out there and say, okay, if I'm going to run fifth in the 358s, I want to be paid more. Well, how much more? How much more is going to be worth it for you to feel like fifth is a win? It's
Right.
just not. Or a 410 for fifth.
Mhm.
I don't give a shit which division at this point. But none of them are going to go. Well, another $100. Oh, come on! You're going to complain about
Yeah.
that $100 more next week when you're like, that still ain't enough to cover my fuel bill, my tire bill, my thing to get to the track. The winnings you're winning from the race are not covering your cost of anything.
Mhm.
Right.
They're just not, because at some point you're not going to win enough money to cover the motor in the car.
Well, that's
Like in a 358 division, you can win 10 times and not cover the cost of one engine, let alone all the other parts and all the other things that makes it to the track. So there's this thing, like that. Does the extra winnings? Yeah. Does it help? Yeah, absolutely, it helps. I'm not making an excuse for it to be less, but it's not going to turn anyone's program around to win
No.
50 or $100 more to finish eighth,
no.
right? So the break point areas are sponsors, and the sponsors want to be on cars when the sponsors get the publicity for being on the cars that gets them business.
Yes.
And how does that happen?
Absolutely.
Eyeballs. How does that happen? Promotion. How does that happen? Activation at the track. How does that happen? More people see it.
Flow
It
racing.
doesn't like it just it's not easy, but it's also not that hard to make the equation work, in
Mhm.
my opinion. It just, yeah, I don't know. That's my rant about that part too.
Well, that's kind of where, like, say I start 20th and just say there's a lot of squirrely business happening with the guys between 14th and 15th, and I see that and I will tell anybody this, and I think that's why a lot of my sponsors do appreciate, because some people just don't care and they will drive way over their head just to get that extra $10. I am not that driver. If I feel like there is no way in heck that I can pass safely with myself and the person beside me, I'll take chances, but there's a kind of a thin line as a car owner and the driver where it's just not worth it.
Right.
And some people are like, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. Well, at the end of the season, how much did you tear up compared to what I tore up? I'm not there. I mean, yes, of course I'm there to win, but if I'm starting 20th on used tires, it's hard to get up through there some nights, because if some people are hugging the bottom and there's no top, you're kind of stuck there anyway.
Right.
So some people don't put that into consideration, that
Mhm.
it's not like iRacing where you can just hit the gas and just
Yeah.
hit reset after you hit the wall.
Mhm.
I try to reserve my equipment because I am also the car owner, and I also have a lot of respect for the people that do sponsor the car, because I don't want them to think, "Oh my God, she's tearing stuff up every week." Um, so I've always been that way. I definitely know that I need to take a little bit more chances, just because I've sat back a little bit, and this year I feel like I need to kind of just take that extra. Now I'm not going to go crazy like some guys or girls, but I definitely kind of want to be a little bit more aggressive than I've been in the past.
And do you feel like, you've had enough years experience under your belt at this point and kind of know, I think at this point you would know when is to take it, right? Do you trust the
Oh,
driver in front
absolutely.
of you? Do you have an opportunity to do it? And then can you finish it off without either tearing your car up or someone else's? So, I've watched you race a lot, and you don't make mistakes. But like you said, though, you
Try
don't
not to.
you don't really make a lot of mistakes, but that also comes with sometimes not taking that chance to give you the
Absolutely.
opportunity to make a mistake, right? So, I think it's that balance, and like, hey, that it could be that night where you drew in the middle, and that one spot means for a redraw, you're there. Do I take the chance to get in a redraw, or is it just a transfer spot to not have to run a B and put more wear and tear on your car to
Right.
run through a B that you probably know, hey, I'll start up front in this B and I'll probably end up winning this B, but it's more laps I don't have to put on my car. I think it's just situational, right? And whether that's again, not for 15th in the A when it's for $50 or $20 or no dollars, it's the same money. Unless you're
Absolutely.
chasing points, right? You have a great start to the season. I think it's all going to be situational, and then having a confidence in yourself and saying, I'm gonna go get this and I can do this, right? So, I look forward to that for sure. I'm looking forward to see that this year. I hope that that works for you. Chris and Jimmy, I'm ready for my question. If unless you guys have something else that's pressing.
No,
Uh,
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because
Is
you're
this
just
the
gonna do it
question I
anyway.
heard you ask earlier?
Yeah.
Every week. Okay, this is the
We'll let him
one.
have his question, and we can move
And
on.
and I do have to. I always explain it so it's not a personal dig at anybody because that's not what I intended this to be. I intended this to be. I should call it the Ryan Newman question, right? Because the NASCAR, if you know Ryan Newman or watch him, he
Mm-hmm.
was always notorious for being really hard to pass, right? He's just
Yep.
hard to race around, hard to pass. So that was the spirit of my question. And listen, I think in this business, we talk local, Central PA. You race with the same people every week. At some point, somebody's gonna get mad at somebody else, and I understand that. So you can take it wherever you want, but the intention and spirit of the question is kind of what I explained. So two drivers. One, you love racing around. You have a great time racing all the time. Doesn't matter when, where, how. It's always been enjoyable for you. And second is the driver that is just a thorn in your side for whatever reason.
Matt Finley has always been a good driver to race around because he's kind of in the same boat. He won't go out there and do anything stupid. Um, we've had actually a couple races this year where we raced each other hard, and we both struggled this year a little bit in our own ways. But I know Matt wouldn't do anything hurtful to me, and I have a lot of respect for him. So I feel like anytime I'm around him, I that would be one guy I could trust going on the outside of, um, if I did decide to move up farther than what I normally do. Um, he's not like the type of person I'd have to worry about. Um, I can't really say that there's anybody in the division right now that I feel like is a thorn in my side. I'll be honest, like I used to be horrified of Doug Hamaker. We had an incident before, like I'm trying to think what year that was. 2016 maybe, or 15. Um, and it was just a racing deal, but it was a crappy racing deal. And I just kind of like when I after that happened, I kind of as soon as I saw Doug on the outside, I just let him pass me. I was like, I am not getting in my head, and I'm just letting him go at this point. But I feel like after Doug got hurt, I feel like he's kind of calmed down a little bit. Um, and I can trust him more, I would say. Um, so I just feel like there's not really anybody that I could say is a thorn anymore because I kind of feel like the 358 division is well. I will say Chris Frank is hard to pass because we're both on the same line. So if he's on the bottom, you know you ain't getting past him because you know I ain't gonna
There
roll
you
on
go.
the outside of him because normally if he's on the bottom, there's a reason he's on the bottom. So he's kind of really tough to pass because we're on the same. We're literally on the same line. So,
I saw him
but
make a
I would.
Facebook post about that the other super like in the last couple of days, something about like he must have been getting criticized for running the bottom or something. He made a post sort of alluded right to that as like that, it's what he likes to do. It's where he likes to run. So,
It's
you
a
know,
comfort thing. I mean, people laugh about the bottom, but you know what? Donnie Kreitz has won a shit ton of races on the bottom,
so
and
is that Fred Raymer guy over the years. He won a lot.
yes,
A few of them are
Greg
running
has
around the bottom
too.
at Lincoln. Yeah,
Greg has too. I
for
mean,
sure.
I feel like you have to have everybody like Monteith. He sucked on the bottom.
Oh,
He could not come
oh,
down at
he's
all.
the opposite. Yeah.
Brian Lepo used to be the
Yep.
same way. He, for the longest time, could not run the bottom. But man, you put that boy on the top, and he was wide open, and he was right on the outside of you.
Yep.
So everybody has. I mean, I'm sure they called Blaney the low rider for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because he was running the high side. Um, so I just feel like everybody has their comfort zone, and the ones that have never driven a car, when you get in a car, it's completely. I mean, I obviously thought things before when I didn't race either, but it looks easy on the outside. But when you're in the car, like, you know what your car's supposed to do. Like, if you try something, like, say you're running the middle and it just doesn't work, or if you move up higher and you feel like you got absolutely nowhere, you're going to come back down and just run your comfort zone. It's just how racing works.
Yep, for sure. Chris.
My question for you, actually, so if you had to pick one race to win in a sprint car or anything, what would it be?
Like a 358 race or
Any
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 race.
your
sprint,
most your
any
favorite
sprint
race
car
if you got
at
to
any
pick?
track to
Knoxville
win.
Nationals.
Have you
Cool.
been out to Knoxville? You going
I
out
have
before?
not. I want to though. I
Okay,
definitely want to.
2023 sounds like the year. Let's go to
I guess it
Knoxville.
depends how racing's going by August.
All right, I like that. Awesome.
But I feel like
Jimmy, oh,
Knoxville's a big.
it's the one, right? It's the Knoxville
Oh yeah.
Nationals.
Yeah.
I
But
can't argue that.
the Kings Royal is also a special event too. But I feel like Knoxville has so much more behind it. Especially knowing, like, when just watching guys in Victory Lane when they win the Knoxville Nationals, that just tells the tune
Yeah,
right
it's
there that
different than
how
any other race.
It's different.
important that race is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's when you look at it on a national scale, the Knoxville Nationals definitely has that mystique and that emotion. When you have one of our local guys win the National Open, it has that same feel
Mhm.
Absolutely.
for a local guy, right? So I think if you take that on a local scale, National Open, now every driver everywhere wants to win National Open, but you take that emotion of the National Open and you take that and say, what would that be nationally? It's Knoxville Nationals, right? So
Yes.
I can't argue with any of those. I mean, I, yeah.
Jimmy, what you got?
Oh,
Go
paint
ahead.
scheme and sponsors, Jimmy. So Ashley recently just released new paint scheme for
Yes.
2023, and I think it's going to be on the
Yep.
screen
There you
now.
go. Looks awesome.
It looks awesome. I love the
Thank
red,
you.
white, black, blue. It's perfect.
Yeah. Looks great.
So while that's on the screen, tell us a little bit about your sponsors. Who helps you get up and down the road? Jimmy, that was
Well,
a handoff to you.
Gettysburg
Hmm?
Trading Post has been with me pretty much my whole career now. They took over the main sponsor position in 2021 at Brian's Fuel and Service. They've been with us for a couple years now, since I would say 2018. Yesteryear Antiques, that's actually where I have my booth at for my business. They're new on board. Mike's Towing and Recovery, they've been with me for a couple years now as well. Stoner's Auction, they are one of the auction houses I go to a lot for the business. The Republican Club of Hanover, they've been on board for a couple years. Brenneman Painting, he does all of our body painting for the car. FK Roddens have been with me from day one. Iron Horse Trains, they are actually the owner of Yesteryear's business. They sell trains inside of there, so it was like a 2-for-1 deal. CP Carrillo, which is who I get my pistons from. DW Automotive, he is Dwayne Watson. They used to run 358s and Thunder cars, so he does all of our repair work for our vehicles. Schaefer's Oil, I've used their oil pretty much my whole career as well. Nasty Nate Racing, he's new this year as well. BAM Lifters, they're the lifters that we use on the car. And MTR Roll Off Dumpsters, that's Mike's Towing's business. So, like, if you want to do like a clean out of your business or your home, they have like the roll off dumpsters that you can throw away, like all your junk pretty much. Total Seal, they do all our piston rings. So there's, I mean, a good many people that help us out. Bruce Buckwalter, he's the one that helped me bring my design that I did to life, and he made it a little bit better. So we're looking for this is our first year together doing graphics together, so I'm excited for that. Feel bad for him because his team lost last night, so I didn't even bother messaging him today because that game was a little rough at the end last night.
You're telling me.
That was sad.
Yeah, it was very sad. I was going to ask you also, you've done some cool tribute schemes throughout the years. I just wanted to get your opinion on those, just a little bit of backstory on those.
So the first one I did was 9/11. I kind of wanted to do something special for that because my uncle was a firefighter. And then I started doing firefighting myself not too long after. So I did that. I did the breast cancer, like the scheme already, because my main sponsor at the time, she was a breast cancer survivor. So was my grandmother, and not knowing in the end of 2019, my mom would have got it too. Let's see. I did a paint scheme of a really, really good friend of mine that passed away from a car accident. My number was 43 for that. He was supposed to race quads. And he didn't get to race. Like, it was all designed up and getting ready to be lettered and everything. And I used his scheme and used it on my car since that scheme never got ran on his quad. Let's see. I'm trying to think. We did the Brandon Little Memorial for a few years. I ran the Sterner Cement 69 because Pat Sterner was one of our first sponsors, and I actually won that race in 2021, but I didn't have the Sterner Cement on that year. So that was really special because my first win, I actually won on her birthday, and then my second win was on her husband Weldon's memorial race. So it's kind of just crazy how that stuff happens. Trying to think if there was anything else. After Greg passed away, I put his face and a young fan of mine that passed away inside of my numbers, one on each side. So that was really special. Trying to think. We did Make-A-Wish one year. We let the kids put their handprints on, and that's the night that the motor blew up. So Brent Shear ended up running that wing for me in warm-ups, which I thought was very nice of him to at least get the wing out there for me. I'm thinking that's it that I can really think of as far as and the Steve Smith. How could I forget that one? Especially with today being his birthday. That was very dear to my dad's heart because of him working for Steve, and that was his birthday present. So we ran that car for him.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, that's something because I've noticed. You do a lot of those different ones. We see some other drivers, they'll do one off shoot here and there, but you really go all out when you do it, and I think that's awesome. I think it really it's a really cool deal. So
thank you. Yeah, I don't know if we have what our plan is this year. I mean, God willing, hopefully nobody dies or anything that I would feel like I would have to do that. But that's just everyday life. I don't know what we're doing for the firefighter race this year. Haven't really heard yet, but it is kind of early still. I feel like, and I don't know if you guys ever noticed this either, but I feel like the ones that run the special schemes on certain races are the ones that, not that they struggle, but I feel like those are the nights that it's hard for those cars to be the ones in victory lane. And it's something that I've noticed with other people. Like, I thought it'd be cool if Justin Peck won in the 73
Mhm.
for the Kramer Clash, and I don't think it ended up happening. So I thought that would have been cool. I've seen a lot of different tribute cars, and of course, like all over the world, I'm like, oh, I really hope that they win tonight for their special purpose. And I remember when Tim Woggeman won the firefighter race and
Hmm.
the car, that was really cool. Um,
Did Monteith ever win the Sterner with the Sterner wing?
I believe he did.
I think he may have, right? Because that was one of the
Yeah.
like of a premier, multiple time winner puts it on a car. Like you're gonna have that shot. Not that no one else does,
Right.
but like that would make sense to me because I know that he ran out multiple years. I want to
Yeah.
say when he was still kind of rolling along there. Um, what was I forget what I was going to say. There was something about it. One of the special schemes in a win. Oh, you said you won the Weldon one year where you didn't have a wing on. That Weldon Sterner Memorial race is one of my favorite, like low key, not like overly publicized national races.
Yeah.
I love that race. I don't know why. I've been to that for whatever reason. My schedule's always aligned. I'm at that race every year because they always play that version of the ride.
Oh
Every
yeah.
the
She's a huge Dale Earnhardt fan. So
the Dale
she.
Earnhardt song every year, and that for whatever reason, the last couple of years, where like there was a few years where that race was like a big paying race, and it paid out more money, and it was like a thing. And I think the last couple of years, I don't know if it's been quite as an event, but I end up making that race every year, and I always like stop and like that's pretty cool. Like I don't know why, I just dig that one.
Tyler said Lance won in the
Yep.
461 design at Port.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay,
Yeah.
see,
I forgot
that is
about
cool.
that.
Yeah. That is neat when that happens for sure. When the time like the Tim Woggan one, I wasn't at that year, but I remember like he didn't win. He wasn't like he's not a guy who wins 10 races a year every year. And he had the special scheme on that year and won that race. That was super
Yeah, that
cool
was
that
really
night.
cool.
Yeah, because he led like I think he might have started up front and led like that whole thing or something,
Yeah.
and it was just super cool because Tim's kind of an underdog in a sense. He's not an underdog. Everybody knows him, but he's not a guy like I said wins 10 races. So it was still like okay, that was cool. Like it just like it
Yeah.
was meant to be that night for sure.
So yeah, I think tribute cars though are definitely neat. For it
Makes
gives
the
like the
races
fans
special.
something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Where's Hodnan at? He is currently knocked out. He had to get blood work done today for heartworms and something else. They double checked, and it was negative. And then he had to get his Lyme shot and his Lyme disease shot, and what was the other one? Oh, his rabies shot. So he's back on antibiotics again because he had an infection a couple weeks ago in his foot, and I guess it was so deep down into his foot that it came back. It's not as bad as it was, but they put him back on antibiotics, so he's probably just out.
Funny story. Chris had the same stuff done today, so he got his rabies shot, and
Oh yeah.
he's ready to be knocked out. He's not feeling the best. He had all the same stuff done today. So
Not quite, not quite, but yeah, I'm sitting here like between sweating
Well,
and then like
hopefully
I
you're not
take my
out biting people then if you have a rabies shot.
not until race season, man.
Well, speaking of race season, before we let you go, what are your plans for 2023? Anything different than years past, or?
A little bit. I actually told everybody at my fundraiser Saturday, we're gonna run this season as if it's my last, just because you should live your life every day like it's your last. So that's kind of like my motto for this year. I want to go have fun this year, so we're gonna do some 360 races. I wanted to go to Bedford and I want to go to Big Diamond for the 360 show and the 358 show. I want to possibly hit Port Royal for the Speed
nice.
Week show. I guess it all kind of depends how our season goes. I do have some. Let me pull it up on my phone because I have it written down. I sat here and wrote it down the other night. We're not going to hit the BAPS race on the 26th just because of the the 4 race deal with the tires. I don't want to buy any of the tires that we can run currently new if I absolutely don't have to. So I just want to try to start the year off. We might go to Lincoln to shake the car down with the 410s, maybe just tag the back of the field and just kind of get some laps just to make sure everything's good. possibly. Lincoln, as much as we can. I want to do possibly Bridgeport if I can tolerate putting the fire extinguisher in the car. I saw how big that bottle is, and it kind of concerns me a little bit, but I want to kind of see how that plays out by the end of the year. So we might run all 3 Bridgeport shows at the end of the year.
Cool.
And I also want to do the BAPS race on the 27th of May.
Nice.
So, and there is a couple Grove shows that I have in here, but it's kind of like a tentative type deal, depending on my dad's DJing, the auction business, or the antique business going to auctions and stuff. But there is a couple Grove shows in there. So I guess we'll kind of see what happens.
Awesome deal. Well, we wish you the best of luck this season.
Thank you.
Cool to see you getting out a little bit and doing some different stuff. That's gonna be pretty exciting. And like I said, wish you the best of luck. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's getting late here, so we really appreciate
Oh,
you.
I
Go
got
get some
another 2
rest.
hours. Well, maybe not with how I
Right.
didn't get home till like 2 o'clock, so I might not be up as late as I usually am. But thank you again for having me. It's definitely, you guys are definitely doing a great thing, and I try to get on as much as I can to watch because you guys are definitely doing a good job.
Appreciate that.
And looking forward to seeing what other guests you have on this year because it's nice. I mean, obviously you race against these guys and you see them at the track, but you don't know a whole lot about them. So it's nice to kind of know who you're racing with and kind of understand people because I mean nowadays everybody's so quick to make judgment of people and they don't really know their story and their background and like why they do the things that they do. Like when people always say, oh, why aren't you doing this race or that race, it's like racing doesn't pay the bills. Me going to auction does. So it's just nice to kind of know. And it's nice to see like you guys having great questions for us drivers too because that's not always easy to come up easy either. Oh my gosh. Maybe I should go to bed. To come up with questions because if you don't have good questions, you ain't gonna have a good show.
Yeah.
We like to know, so we want to find out. We're inquisitive people. We want to find out more. So, Jimmy and Chris, we're gonna come up and introduce. If I don't, have you guys met her in the pits at all?
No,
This week?
no.
They're
I
gonna be in the
don't
pits
bite.
more this. They're gonna be in the pits more this
I
season.
don't
So
have a
we'll come
rabies
by and
shot
see you.
though, so
Well, Chris will be good. He'll be fine. Well,
Jimmy will put me on the leash.
yeah. We'll make sure we come up, say hi to you, and
okay.
Yeah.
we'll get Chris. We're gonna get Chris and Jimmy in the pits more this year, and kind of put faces to names, and
Yeah.
in person. So, good luck to you
All
this
Hopefully at
year.
the
right.
And,
Sounds
icebreaker.
great. Stop
yeah,
by
at the
anytime. You
icebreaker,
guys are
hopefully.
definitely welcome to stop by. Even if you want to stand on the trailer and hang out, you're more than welcome to do that too.
Chris has a tendency of falling off, so we try not to let him up there
I've
too high.
never been
know.
on a trailer.
He's never
Okay.
We gotta get some energy out of Chris. He was a
Yeah,
little
we're
sleepy.
just
I'm trying to get
we're
him
just
going.
we're just
That
picking
kind
on
of
him.
day, man.
Picking on Chris day.
It's not that bad, I promise.
I've had nothing done today. It's just been a slug.
Awesome. Thanks,
Poor
Ashley.
guy.
Take care. Good luck in 2023.
Thank
you.
Have a good
See ya.
night, guys.
You too.
Appreciate
Bye
it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Awesome. That was awesome interview. Awesome show tonight, guys. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. Enjoyed everybody here in the comment section. Had a lot of interaction, which is always great. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody's comments, but I feel like we got to most of them. And yeah, final thoughts, guys.
I don't know. I might be crying. My eyes watering.
It's
No,
okay.
that was fun.
Are you crying because the Eagles lost? It's okay.
Yeah, that's it.
It's the last thing I'd cry about. No, that was good. It was unique. That was different. Different perspective from from Tyler, both on the iRacing side to a little bit of his involvement in our local racing scene, helping out a local team. He's a smart kid. He's very involved. He keeps up with the sport. Like he's knowledgeable. He really pays attention. And and then Ashley's perspective of car owner, driver. One thing we didn't really get into is woman in the sport. We didn't get into that. I really wish we might have to have her back and talk about that some more, because that's a unique perspective. Unfortunately, us dumb men didn't really talk about there. And
I think there's just so much stuff that she brought up that was so interesting on its own that
yeah,
there's a lot to
100%.
unpack there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. No, that was fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
Chris, anything else?
No, I think it was awesome. I look forward to seeing Ashley this season and following along to see how she does, and maybe one day I'll beat Tyler Shell in something. And yeah, that's about
Same,
all I
same.
got.
Jimmy,
Mm-hmm.
I got to do, if it's just 1 week,
Oh
Daytona
no.
500 pick. If we
Ooh.
talk about asphalt, who's your Daytona 500 pick?
I'm going Bubba Wallace. I'm not even letting Jimmy answer.
All
I'm
right,
going
Chris.
Denny Hamlin.
You're an idiot.
I mean, that's not a very. You're
Yeah,
not
I
going out on
don't
a
know.
big, like a
No,
very
I'm
large
not going
ledge
out on
there.
a ledge there. I do think Toyota's going to show up. So I don't hate the Bubba Wallace pick either, or Tyler Reddick or somebody like that. But
Same.
Daytona's so hard to predict. But honestly, Hamlin seems to be one of the most consistent guys at that track somehow, some way.
I'm going Chris Buescher.
Ooh, I like that pick.
I think
He's-
Ford's going to get in line. Buescher's a good plate guy. He's going to go get it, man. The only other one would have been Priest. That would have been the other guy.
My
Like
my
I don't know if
sentimental
Daytona's his thing, but like I like Buescher this weekend. I have no idea
sentimentally,
why.
I kind of want like a Kozlowski or Kyle Busch to finally win it for the first time,
that would be kind
just
of cool.
because be cool. But like, I mean, I still think Bubba Wallace is going to win this thing. He's
The
been
main
close.
thing I want to see is Kyle Larson finish a damn speedway
500.
race
Yeah,
because he just
I'm
has
a
a hard
Harvick fan,
time.
and it's the same thing. Harvick never
Yeah.
finishes these damn things. He's always caught up in it.
That would be cool to see him win his final Daytona 500. I think that would be really cool.
What about what would your thoughts be if Jimmy Johnson were to win this thing?
I want to see if he makes the show first.
I was just gonna say that. Let's see if he can even make the show first. It's gonna be cool because the duels are gonna be more than ever. I mean, I know there's always cutoff cars.
6 cars for 4 spots.
Yeah,
There's gonna be some
but they're
potentially
all
big
good.
names not in, like
They're all big
Pastrana.
Yeah, they're all big names that are gonna be fighting for it. It's not gonna be
Yeah,
like
like BJ McLeod. I mean, he's
no. Well, no, he's a
he's
charter,
locked
so
in.
he's in. So
Oh,
yeah,
Chandler
exactly.
Smith. I think it's Chandler Smith.
Chandler Smith, Travis
Zane
Pastrana,
Jimmy
Smith?
Johnson.
Connor Daly, Jimmy
Zane.
Johnson, Zane Smith. Yeah, so some bigger names
And
that have
there's
talent that
of those
have to
5
raise
years
their
listed,
way
one
in.
of them's going home. But like, I don't know.
But
It's
Cody
kind of
Ware
dumb
will be
not having
there.
practice. Yep.
Cody,
And BJ McLeod.
I heard on. It was funny. I was driving home listening. I listen to NASCAR and Sirius XM, and someone said that their pick was Cody Ware to win, and he was dead serious.
I'm out.
Yeah,
I can't even laugh
and
at it.
on
Hey,
that,
thank you everybody.
on that note, we're
Subscribe.
out.
Hit us up. Message us who you
Yes.
want to see on here. We're always open to suggestions. And if you got contacts, send them our way. We'll
Yeah.
get them on the show here. Tentatively next week, our biggest show
Yeah,
yet?
it'll
Question mark?
Question mark might be our biggest show.
Maybe. I mean, the people that we want to have on next week don't know we want to have them on next. But no, that's not the case. But seriously, tune in next week. This is only continue to grow, and I've loved every week that we've had guests, and it's hard to go, hey, next week's bigger.
Yeah.
They've
But
all been.
I feel
been
like
great.
that every time we get done a week, I'm like, man, I'm looking forward to next week already.
Yeah, yep.
And I feel that way every single week. And as we get closer to race season, it gets me more hyped for what's about
We're
to happen.
ramping up for it.
So I'm hoping to hit up maybe a race shop this weekend, maybe another engine shop, maybe Motorama, some stuff. There's some stuff going on with some people. So, but Motorama this weekend, I want to go out and go into the main arena, shoot some dirt bikes and some quads. And a year ago this weekend, is the first time I got my racing lens. I got that and went out and shot it for the first time this past year. So I want to go back this year and see if I can see what I improved from last year to a year now. And I can't even imagine. I loved what I got last year, so I can't even imagine how it'll go this year. So I'm excited for that. As long as I can get there, some other things, personal life going on schedule wise. So hoping I can get out there this weekend. And then we got Daytona. Okay. By the way, am I the only one that thinks it's completely strange that Daytona qualifying is on Wednesday?
I think it's dumb. There's no practice until after.
Yeah.
That I'm not concerned about because they didn't really televise practice back in the day.
Yeah, but I meant more
it was like a
if
tradition.
if you're Jimmy Johnson or Travis Pastrana, how do you
or
feel
Connor
about
Daly? You're taking your first laps on pole qualifying.
Learn how to pull off pit road and qualify.
I do.
I
do
I'm
agree.
I
do agree. Sunday was the good day to have qualifying.
Sunday,
they could at least
noon qualifying. NASCAR.
They could.
My whole childhood, adult.
They could at least
at 7.
Yeah, they could at least have like a rookie qualifying because they do, or a rookie practice because don't they do
just
like
think
the
of
Indy
go back
500?
to COVID year when Larson blew the motor because they left a thing in the radiator for Talladega because there was no practice or qualifying. If I was a team, now obviously that's extreme, but don't you want to shake down your stuff before your dual race? I would
Of course
expect,
they
Well,
even if you're
do.
locked in,
yeah.
Of course they do. They hate this.
give them
Yes.
20
But
minutes.
does that make qualifying even more irrelevant than ever? Does it really matter? Other than the pole winner? Like,
Well,
does
it
it
does for the
matter?
six. It does for those.
Those
It does
duels
for
now.
those
That's
6
it.
guys because
For
those
7
two.
guys, the 6
But
unlocked in and the pole winner. Does
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 your
anyone else
your
give a shit?
qualifying spot doesn't really matter because of
No, it doesn't matter.
the type of racing it is.
It's
So,
Daytona, right?
yeah.
Do you think anyone's going to focus on qualifying? No one knows what each other has. So, like back in the day, it used to be okay. We went out and did a mock qualifying run, and look, we're not fighting for the pole here, so we don't really give a shit. We're going to go run our lap and go do our duel and race in our duel. No one
Yep.
gave a shit because you could go out qualify 25th, go out and finish third in your duel, and that's where you start. It only matters for the 6 not locked in and the winner of the pole.
Yeah. pretty much.
Otherwise, and now it's on a Wednesday night. I don't know. I just
Well,
think it loses the mystique of it. The duels mean a million times more than the qualifying.
yeah. Well, probably the person that means the most towards is going to be Alex Bowman because
Alex
he's going for
Bowman,
like 6 or 7 straight now, being on the front row, which is
Yeah.
insane to even think of. But Hendrick's always dialed in on pole day.
Always.
So
And that's what it'll end up being probably again. It'll be whatever team hit on something that they didn't maybe even know they hit on. And both of theirs or all their cars are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what do we sit there and watch that for 3 hours? Like, I don't know.
I'm more excited about what I'm more excited about on Wednesday night is our Daytona race, our clash. We finally get our season underway with Full Throttle Next Gen League.
Do you think I should have practiced at all?
No. Yeah, it's because it's fun, but no.
It's Daytona.
It's fun. Daytona's fun.
Is it?
So.
Is it though? Because I don't know if I've ever finished a Daytona race in my
It's
iRacing
probably because you
career.
haven't practiced.
I don't think that's the case. I've rarely caused the wreck that I end up in.
Well, you got to practice not being.
You got to practice avoiding the wrecks.
Oh, that's what it is.
and knowing who's going to cause the wreck.
Yes.
Everyone.
Aaron, you guys gonna try the on iRacing? They're doing the full length Daytona 500. I think I want to try to hit
Absolutely.
I'm
that.
going to try it, but there's no percent chance I finish it.
Yeah.
That's what I just said, and you're giving me shit for it.
Well, it's a lot longer
that's
than our
official.
30 lap race.
Yeah, that's 500 miles.
Yeah. So.
All
Anyway.
right, boys. Fun stuff.
Good
Let's
night.
get out of here. Chris, we're just
Thanks,
dragging
everyone.
this on torture for Chris at this point.
Yeah.
Let him get out of here. Get some rest, buddy. Hope you feel better.
See y'all.
See you guys. Take
See you
care.
guys.